5.9 years of experience as a Java developer. I am currently working on Java version 8 along with Spring Boot and microservices. For the deployment and testing, we are using Docker and Kubernetes environment. Apart from this, for the inter-service communication in the microservice environment, we are using Kafka, and we are also using REST at certain places. And apart from this, I have also been involved into unit testing where we are using JUnit and Mockito framework. And on the other side, for the maintaining our code, we are using Git, Jenkins, Jira, tools like these. We are also using Kafka and Grafana for logging and monitoring purposes. And apart from this, like, I have been working into agile methodology.
I'll reconfirm the things from you, then
Sure.
I'll start asking you questions related to your technology sides.
Sure.
So you have 5.9 years of overall experience as Java developer, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And with this, you have worked for the Java, REST API, Spring, Spring Boot, Spring Security, database design.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't worked much on Spring Security. Rest I have worked.
Okay. And did you work for the microservices part as well?
Yes.
All right. With that, you have mentioned in your introduction that you work for Kafka, Git, JUnit, and Agile.
Yeah.
That's correct?
Yes.
All right. Rather than any of technology which I have left to explain that you have worked for this.
I have also worked on MongoDB that I've currently
So
been working
database
on.
will cover
Yeah.
that part, so no need to worry for
Sure.
this.
Yeah, rest.
I'll start with the Java part first.
Sure.
Please tell me about what do you mean by abstraction?
Abstraction is actually hiding of irrelevant details from the user. We can do abstraction by interfaces, introducing interfaces, or abstract classes. Abstraction is actually, you can hide the irrelevant details and show only specific details that you want the user to show on a very, you can say, basic level.
Tell me the relevant example for that or real time example for the abstraction.
So, for the real time example that we can have is something like we can have a particular interface that shows, suppose there is some sort of ATM machine, right? That can have the cash withdrawal and certain other functionalities to be provided, like check balance or pin change. So we can just show the user what particular functionality is provided, using providing him some sort of interface that only defines, okay, we are providing these sort of functionalities, but we are hiding the implementation details. That is how these things are internally implemented and how it works from the end user or customer.
All right, now tell me about which are the types of access modifiers.
So we have public, private, default, and protected. These four types of access mode.
Explain about the private and protected part
Okay.
only.
Private is just like the scope is limited to a particular class, whereas, I mean, you cannot access it beyond that particular class. Whereas protected is, the scope is actually limited to, you can say, within a particular package, and outside the package, only through the child classes it can be accessible.
Now write a down short coding example for the inheritance.
Okay, sure. Hmm.
While you're writing that, please also tell me about what is the major difference between final, finally, and finalize concept.
Final, when it is used with like some of the primitive data type, you cannot actually modify its value. Like if with any of the variable, you cannot modify the value of final. When it is used with some sort of, you can say, class, you cannot extend that. When it is used with some method, you cannot override that particular method. Whereas in case of, for example, finally, it is used into try catch block, so that you can actually finally block is actually executed even if there is an exception or not. it is usually used to close some sort of resources or something like that. And in the end, or if you want to perform some operation. Whereas if you have for example finalize, you mentioned, right? So into that it's more of you can say with that finalize, it is used whenever it is called, it is used for garbage collection by the JVM. You can call the finalize method, but it is not guaranteed that JVM will do the garbage collection at the same time.
Correct. Now tell me about on which part of collections you have worked.
So I have worked on like list using the array list, linked list, and I have also worked on set, as well as I have worked like apart from this I have worked on map as well.
Explain me about hash set.
Hash set is actually it doesn't maintain the order, and unlike lists, it actually doesn't store the duplicate elements. It has just the unique elements into it. But yeah, definitely it doesn't you know store the elements into the order of insertion. They can be random in nature.
Okay. And the array list.
Array list can actually be
What is
like
it?
array list is actually it can store duplicate elements. It is actually regrowable in size as compared to arrays. And apart from this, you can store primitive or heterogeneous sort of objects into array list. And also it actually maintains your insertion order and supports random access. And apart from this, uh, you can say it also sort of uh, implements random access, and that's all I can recall. So part of it is
Okay.
actually an implementation of list interface.
Okay. Understand. Now explain me about is hash map synchronized or not?
No, hash map is not synchronized or thread safe in nature. If you want, you can use collections.synchronize map to synchronize it, or you can also use concurrent hash map.
Okay. By using concurrent hash map, we can make it synchronous.
Uh, I mean, that is another implementation of the map interface. If you want a particular hash map to be synchronized, you can use collections.synchronize map and pass the instance. Otherwise, like if you
Correct.
want to use that, you can create the object of concurrent hash map and then use it.
Also, you can use the hash table in that.
Yes.
Alright, now tell me about how the exception is handling is done in the Java. How will you handle the exception in Java part?
So we usually do it using try catch block or throws. In case of our I mean Spring Boot application, we are actually using controller advice. Additionally, with that, into the controller advice, we are providing exception handlers using @exception handler to handle that sort of, like suppose we created some sort of custom exception like bad request or something like that, and we want to handle as part of that controller advice, we provide that bad request exception dot class, and then into that we can actually handle that particular exception. So wherever in our code, like using the try catch or throw, that particular exception occurs, it will actually land on to that controller advice, and there we are actually populating a sort of you can say generic schema into which we are returning like the error message along with the error code and certain other timestamp and other relevant details to the UI or the client from our server.
Okay. Now explain me about what do you mean by deadlock situation?
Deadlock is actually something like there is a thread 1 and thread 2, and thread 1 is acquiring some resources which are actually required by thread 2 to be executed, and thread 2 is actually acquiring some of the resources which are required by thread 1 to be executed. So in these in this
So, in
case,
a simple term, I can say multiple threads look for the same results on the same time,
yes.
and there will be occur a lock, which is deadlock situation, which is never end situation. I can call.
Yeah, yeah.
We have solution to resolve it, but it is by default never end situation.
Yes, yes. So your program is actually stuck at that particular place.
Can we declare entity as final?
Sorry, can you please come again?
Just give me 1 minute.
Sure.
I'll share the question with you. You have three threads, T1, T2, and T3. You have to ensure that T2 will run after T1 and T3 will run after T2. So in this scenario, which method you can use?
So we can use join method, like on T2 we want on T2 we want it to run after T1, so we can like execute from T2, like T1 dot join. So first T1 will be executed, then T2 will run, and in T3 we want T2 to be executed, so T3 can actually execute T2 dot join, so that after T2 is completed, then only T3 will start its execution.
Right. You can use join, that's correct. Also with help of wait, sleep method
Yeah.
also you can use this scenario.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now tell me about string is a mutable class or immutable?
String is actually immutable in nature.
Okay. String is an immutable in the nature. Then how we will change its value if I want to?
Like you can do it. I mean, if there is string a is equal to abc, then you can do a is equal to cde. But then the reference will actually be pointed to the new one. If you want the same reference, then instead of string, you can go for string buffer or string builder.
Okay. So using new reference and also builder and buffer, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you complete that code or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need
sure, sure.
particular time in writing only?
No, no, yeah, I just did it. You can.
If you have write it down and submitted this, I'm asking another coding question, which
Sure.
is, are you aware of the palindrome concept?
Yes.
So can you write a program for the string palindrome?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'll do.
Okay. And while you're writing for the string palindrome, I'll ask you a few other basic questions for the string part.
Okay, sure.
And if you need a particular time in the writing only, then in the end I'll give you time. Or if you want to write in between while I'm asking the question, you also can.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'll do it along with that.
Okay. What is the dependency injection in the Spring and Spring Boot, and how we will inject that dependency?
So dependency injection is actually something like you actually inject some sort of dependency using @autowired, and it is majorly used for loose coupling, so that you need not to create a particular, using the new keyword, you create some sort of implementation and then inject it. So it is usually done using @autowired, and you can inject that particular bean into that auto-wide instance of yours into a particular other bean or class.
Using auto wired, we can use the inject. We
Yes.
can inject the
Yeah,
dependency.
@autowired we can use. And apart from that, I think if you talk about traditional MVC framework, then you can do it using the bean XML. Like you can there is that XML tag into which you can provide beans tag. You can create that particular bean using the bean tag, and then there is this, I don't exactly remember, but there is something like auto-wired equal to true or false, that you can provide. But
Also, you can use setter and constructor method for that.
yes, yes, setter and constructor based injection, yeah, we can have that.
Okay. Which are the scope of the beans?
So we have prototype, singleton, global session and request.
Okay, which one is the by default?
By default it is singleton.
Okay, what do you mean by dispatcher service in the Spring MVC?
Dispatcher servlet is actually the front controller onto which a request actually comes in, and then it is particularly into that all the endpoints are actually registered. So it actually calls that specific endpoint that you are trying to hit. So this is what a dispatcher servlet usually does.
Okay, how can I create new project in the Spring Boot?
So you can either from the SPS you can create a new Spring project, or you can use a Spring initializer for that. There is a spring.initializer.io website where you can actually specify all the dependencies on the UI and artifact ID and group ID and everything, and you can get the zip out of it. You can simply unzip and import it into your IDE.
Okay. What are the advantages of using Spring Boot?
So it gives you the major advantages. It gives you production ready application where you can simply just worry about the business logic, and you can write the entire business logic and it starts running. It gives you embedded Tomcat server. Apart from it also there is this enable auto configuration. So all the dependencies that you have on your class path are automatically configured, and even for any sort of configuration like DB configuration, you just have to provide the URL port and everything. Rest
I can say it will provide us the auto configuration, whatever we want.
yeah, it also provides us with actuators and certain other things that are also useful.
Okay, actually.
Yeah.
Alright, now tell me about what do you mean by microservices?
So if you talk about microservices, they are highly scalable in nature. This is the one of advantage that we get with microservice. There you can in an environment where there is a lot of frequent load that gets increases, the number of users get increases. So there is this scalability feature that we have multiple instances we can run for the same application. Apart from this, it doesn't tie you to a particular technology. You can use Spring, you can use Go, you can use Python, any of the technology to communicate between the services, and you can create any of the service in any of the technology that you want. And apart from this, it also provides you with you can say certain error handling scenarios, and also uh, it it also with the you can say Spring Cloud. You can you configuring it with the Spring Cloud, you can very easily configure the load balancing using ribbon and everything. It also provides you with API gateway. So these are the few things that are very advantageous in case of when it comes to microservices.
What is the use of the Docker?
Docker is actually provides sort of containers into which you can actually run your application. It is actually containerizing of your different applications. You can run on a particular server. You can have your different sort of applications running as part of Docker containers, and you can start them in one go, and they communicate with each other to provide you with the functionality or your whole application as one at one particular place.
Okay. And now tell me, what is the use of the oath?
OAuth is actually used, I think, in the security part where I'm not sure very much about it because I haven't worked on the security part. In what happens in our application is as soon as you get a request, there is this credentials that gets validated, and it returns an authentication token back. So based on that particular authentication token, you can have you can, with every request you can provide that authentication token, and then the request is actually validated. If it is validated, then it goes through to your endpoints of the services. Otherwise you get 401 unauthorized. But yeah, I'm not very sure of the concepts of this thing.
Okay. Now tell me about the end-to-end microservices testing part.
So, okay, end-to-end testing part. So we do have like certain scripts that are written into Python, where they are actually providing some sort of they are hitting some sort of APIs of the backend service, like from the API gateway, and then they are giving them that particular payload, and all the services in between of that flow gets called, and as soon as you get a response, you actually check if that is expected or not. So this is how we are going doing the end-to-end integration testing in our applications.
Okay. And now tell me about the continuous monitoring part.
So for the continuous monitoring, like we are using, you can say, uh, first of all, like for the logging purpose, we are using Kibana, and for the monitoring purpose, we are also having actuators configured in all our different services with each of the service. And if there is some sort of error or something like that, then we are using Kibana for that. Also, like we are doing load testing, and on the Grafana we get all the metrics for that particular thing.
Alright. Which are the HTTP method types in the REST API part?
So okay, it's get, put, post, and delete that we have. Uh,
What is the major difference between put and post?
So put is okay. Post is to create an entity, or save, create a new entity, or you can say create a new resource onto your server. And put is actually to modify that particular resource that we have.
That is, how can we call third-party API from the Java class?
So we can use REST template for that, and in fact we can use Fen client as well. Like you can use the exchange method with REST template, or you can create a Fen proxy and then call it in case of Fen client.
Okay. Or also I can say using the REST templates we can do that.
Yes, yes.
Which testing tools you have used?
Are you talking about the REST clients? Like we are using Swagger, and we are using Postman, and apart from that, like we are just usually testing through clients only for our purpose. But the you can say the test team are actually using Selenium as well for testing the UI, and then they have these Python scripts and JMX tools that they use for load testing.
Now, on the databases side, please tell me about what is the difference between primary key and unique key.
Primary key is also like unique in nature, like it will be distinct, you can say, whereas primary key can actually have null. Sorry, no, it's not the case. Like I'm actually not very sure, but I think primary key is also sort of unique key, but I think primary key cannot have the null into it,
Yes,
whereas
that's
unique
correct.
key can have null.
Unique will allow one null.
Yeah,
Primary is not allowing null. That
yeah.
is the main thing in that
Yeah.
profile. Now tell me about how many types of joins are there.
I think outer join, inner join, and self join. Left
Explain me
join
for
and
the
right join.
self join.
Self join is actually like when you have one particular table into which you do the joining into the same table, that is self join.
Joining table itself, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how can I create? Now complete the coding part. Then I'll ask you query questions for the
Okay.
database.
Sure. Yeah. I was just actually doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Now I'll give you time for writing only. Then I'll ask you database query only.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I think this is how the program will look like.
Right. Now write it down. Query for how can I find second highest salary of the employee in the employee table.
Okay. Second highest.
And also you have to write this query, how to create empty table from the existing. You just have to submit me two things.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay. So, I think this is how the first one will actually look like. We will use a max method on salary for that. And how can you create an empty table from existing table? Like, is this like we have an existing table and
and
we.
from that you have to create one empty table.
Okay. Table. Table. I am actually like not very sure of how to do it. Like,
Okay then. I'm just done from my end. I'll update to HR and they'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your time and have a nice day.
Sure. Thank you. Same here.
Welcome.